The seminar today, it is a matter of introduction, is a collaborative effort with Teammate Technology. Eric Hernandez is joining us. He's the president of Teammate Technology, and the other Eric you see here, Eric Tiffany, is the subject matter expert at Teammate Technology. I'm Jason Beckett. I'm the head of sales at Crexendo and Netsapiens. Most everybody on this call knows who I am, but not everybody knows who Eric and the two Erics are. So the purpose today is to continue to reinforce the opportunity that selling into a Microsoft Teams environment offers. And Teammate Technology has made some huge strides in the past month or so to broaden the appeal of the Netsapiens platform into the Teams community. So that's really the purpose of the session. We don't have a lot of ground rules. This is a webinar, so if you have questions, what I will do is I will monitor the chat window. So as Eric and Eric are going through this presentation, we'll periodically take a break and we'll review the questions that come up. So we'll try to answer them as frequently as possible. So with that being said, Eric, you have the floor, sir.
Okay, I assume you can see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can.
All right. Thank you everyone for attending. Happy to see such a large turnout. And I guess we'll just get right into it. So the reason for this webinar specifically is to talk about a new feature that Teammate is launching. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with Teammate. We've had a very successful partnership with Crexendo Netsapiens over the years, and there are quite a number of you that I see on the chat panel that are existing customers. What's happened though is we've come up with a new innovation that allows you to really overcome an obstacle that we've heard consistently has been an obstacle to actually selling into organizations that use Teams, and that is namely the $8 phone system license that is required to be able to connect Microsoft Teams to the direct routing and to our connector. And so that new feature is a calling app that largely removes the need for that. And we'll talk about that in more specifics. I'm going to talk about what the actual user experience looks like, and then Eric Tiffany will go through some of the steps that are needed on the back end in our service portal to be able to configure that. As far as I know, and Jason will correct me if I'm wrong, but everybody who has signed up for the service through Crexendo has access to we call it the Valet app today. And so it's just a matter of going into your service portal and turning it on and trying it out. So this first slide, before I get into the details though, we just want to kind of give you a lay of the land to talk about, what the opportunity look and why this is so exciting. So this first slide, some of you may have seen this before. This used the same slide in the last webinar that we did with Crexendo, but it's talking about the size of the market. And so, there are 345 million paid Microsoft Office subscribers, seats, of which 270 million of them are Teams users, actually have the Teams client on the phone. So that's really the addressable market that you can talk to. And of those 270 million Teams users, about 80 million have the phone system license. And that phone system license is what you needed to be able to use the Teammate connector in the past until now. So given that that's no longer required, what we're talking about is an opportunity to sell your services to the 270 million monthly Teams users that are out there. So that's quite a large market, and one we're excited to help you address. So first, just a little background. What is Microsoft Phone System? Well, as you probably have heard, Microsoft is out there trying to sell their business phone system suite as a replacement for existing business phone systems. So Microsoft would like businesses to ditch their UCaaS or their PBX or whatever they may happen to be used to talk to the external world, and replace it with Microsoft phone system. And they've created a lot of interest and a lot of noise in the market just by virtue of the fact that they're Microsoft and that there are 270 million Teams users out there. And of course, Teams is the entry point to their phone system. That is the primary endpoint that's used to make and receive phone calls. Well, in order to use Microsoft phone system, you really need either one of the high-level licenses with Microsoft, so that's E5, G5, or A5 for educational institutions. And if you don't have one of those licenses, if you have anything else, generally $1 upcharge from Microsoft to get the phone system license. Now, as I mentioned, Microsoft is out there making a lot of noise about Microsoft phone system, and they have converted quite a large number of enterprises to phone system. But when you really think about it, what these organizations are generally interested in is Teams and not necessarily Microsoft phone system as a whole. This is the results of a poll that was taken of enterprises that had switched to Microsoft phone system. And this is the top 5 reasons for switching. And if you'll notice, of the reasons given, the top 3 in terms of the number of respondents who picked these as their most important reasons are all features of the Teams client itself and not features of the phone system as a whole. So, integration with Microsoft products, well, that's what you get that through the Teams client. The user experience, that is, and by that, I interpret that to mean being able to live inside Microsoft Teams and go about your business on a day-to-day basis without having to use other types of applications, having a centralized experience in Microsoft, which includes talking on the phone through the PSTN to your clients. And then the third is security and compliance. And so these are all, and by security and compliance, I take that to mean the ability to manage the distribution of applications to your workers and to be able to understand what usage looks like. As we all know, Microsoft has many tools that allow that to happen and have a fairly mature way of distributing software through enterprises. So anyway, given that the top 3 features of that are cited for switching to Microsoft phone systems are actually features of the Teams client and not of the phone system, well, that's an opportunity, right? Because that means if you can use the Teams client to connect your customers or new customers to your UCaaS service with Netsapiens and Crexendo, it's an opportunity because that's really giving the best of both worlds. And the reason it's giving your customers the best of both worlds is because of the great job that Microsoft has done in building the Teams client. When you are able to integrate Teams with your existing UCaaS service, you get a lot of benefits as a service provider, and your customers get a lot of benefits. Number one, everybody has it. With 270 million and growing relations out there, it's not an issue of asking your clients to download, a client that they've never heard of, and we all know that can trigger alarms with IT and security personnel about whether the client is secure and many other things. It's already there. They can just turn it on. Of course, Teams is a very capable collaboration suite with video messaging and voice capabilities built in. The fact that Microsoft opened it up and made it available to outside calling systems with direct routing, of course, makes it a great tool for an integration with your UCaaS. Of course, it integrates with Office 365 and a plethora of other applications. The fact that it's open means that many other developers have taken the opportunity to integrate it with it. And as you probably know, there are hundreds and hundreds of applications available within the Microsoft ecosystem that can integrate with Teams. But the really interesting parts for me personally, and I think for everybody on this call, is that Microsoft did a great job of making a soft phone. They've addressed many of the issues that really make it difficult to deploy soft phones out in the wild, especially on mobile networks. So from the way they've built their application to the way that they maintain it. As we all know, when there are new operating system versions that come out, they tend to break existing applications, and Microsoft being who they are, they cover most of that. Also in the mobile world, there are a lot of gotchas that you have on mobile networks, from IP6 to MTU size to multiple nets to the push notifications that are required to get an inbound call to a application that's running over the top of the mobile network. All of these things vex service providers on a day-to-day basis when you're trying to deliver your service through an application over the top. One of the nice things about Microsoft is that they've addressed many of these issues, and they just make an application that really works, particularly in the mobile environment. So being able to take that and leverage it to extend the reach of your UCaaS service is really quite compelling. So, and that's the opportunity that Teammate was created to address. We created the PBX connector, which has been out in the market now for almost 5 years, to turn Microsoft Teams into a soft phone that can register to your UCaaS. In addition to that, we've automated a lot of the complexity that comes in dealing with Microsoft's backend and their direct routing. And typically, if you wanted to set this up, on your own, you would have to get a Microsoft compatible SBC. You would have to learn PowerShell, because all of the commands that are used to enable the direct routing require PowerShell. You'd have to work with the Microsoft Graph API. You'd have to do quite a lot just to be able to get the calls in and out. We've done that through the Teammate PBX connector. And in addition to that, we've integrated it quite nicely with the Crexendo Netsapiens platform, so that when you're deploying users, when you're actually out there trying to turn this into a service that people pay for, it's much easier to configure, but also maintain and support. So what's new, though, is what we call the call app. We also refer to it as Valet. And this has been something that's been in development for a while. We've had it in beta since late February. I talked about it on my last webinar with Crexendo in March. And it's really come a long way since then, and we're excited to launch it coming up. And what's different about this is that instead of using the entire Microsoft phone system, and just to put it in perspective, when you pay that $8 for the phone system license, you're really paying for a seat on the Microsoft phone system. And and they have a complete full-blown phone system with many PBX capabilities. But you really don't need all of those features to use it as a soft phone. And so Microsoft has made just the client piece available through what they call Azure Communication Services, Microsoft ACS. And that's kind of their version of CPaaS, where you can use just the disaggregated parts of their network to use to get access to things like the Teams client. So what we did is we took advantage of this offering from Microsoft to hook up our PBX connector in a way that does not require your customer rather, to pay that $8 phone system license. Now, it's not apples to apples, exactly the same experience as using the Teams client with the phone system license, but really it's a very comparable experience. And so that is what we'd like to discuss during the rest of this webinar. And just a couple dates. Since we launched this into beta a few months ago, a lot of feedback, there were a couple of features that were missing from the application. We've been working hard to fill in those gaps. And our release, which will be available on May 22nd to everybody, that's V2.7 for us, version 2.7, is our feature complete version. This is what we believe is the product that meets the needs of all of you. And so we intend to run that for roughly a month until June 19th, when we have scheduled our version 2.8 release, at which point this app, Valet, will be GA in our estimation. So what is it exactly? Oh, I have another slide before that, just to Just to drive the point home, this slide is meant to show the licensing from Microsoft, and on the left you have the Microsoft licensing that you might encounter out in the wild with the customer. So at the top you have just the basic 365 business licenses, basic, standard, and premium, or an E1 or an E3 license. Well, with our standard PBX connector, you would have to add that $8 Microsoft Teams phone license to it, or your customer would, in order to get the capabilities to connect it to your UCaaS service. Of course, if your customer had an E5, A5, or G5 license, there's really nothing to add because that comes with the Microsoft Teams phone system license included and can be connected to your UCaaS service without anything else from Microsoft. The change, of course, with our call app is that for all of the licenses, you don't need to add any other Microsoft licensing. You just add the call app add-on to our PBX connector, and you're automatically able to get the benefits of connecting Teams to your Crexendo UCaaS service. So, as those of you who know me may vouch for, I typically like to live on the edge and do live demos from time to time. I've been known to do them. Unfortunately, that tendency has bitten me today because the platform that we were going to do the demo on is not working quite right. So I cannot do the demo of the app in practice or in real life. I'm sorry for that, but I promise you it's there and it works. So instead, what you get is just a screenshot of what it's going to look like. So this is the Valet app dialer, and really, when you don't pay for the phone system license, what happens is you don't get the dial pad in Microsoft Teams. You can still call other Teams users. The voice capability is there, but it's done through contacts. So if you wanted to call somebody else, you would have to select their contact from your list, and you'd be able to call them that way. Without the dial pad, you can't dial external numbers. So one of the challenges we had to overcome, one of the things we did was to build our own dial pad. And if you'll look at the left side menu bar, you'll see there's a little icon there that says Valet app. And so instead of having the calls app, which you would typically click on to get access to the Microsoft dial pad, with our solution, you pin the Valet app to that left side menu. You click that, and that gives you our dial pad. Now, a lot of other implementations out there use a similar kind of dial pad to do what we call cross launch. And what that means is you can dial a number inside the Microsoft Teams client, but what it's really doing is it's connecting to another app that's running on the PC or the Mac, and it's just controlling that client. And then that client is what is placing the call out through the external UCaaS service. That's fine for what it is, but it's really not giving you all of the great benefits of placing the call through the real-time media engine that Microsoft has developed, right? You're not using the Teams client to make the call. And you are doing that with our application. So even though it's a separate dial pad, we're still using everything that's inherently inside Teams. And so when we launched this a couple months ago, we got a lot of feedback, and one of the things that we were missing was the ability to do hold and transfer. You couldn't place a call on hold, and you couldn't transfer a call. And so those are the features that we've been working to perfect. And so in our latest version, and this is the one that will be available on May 22nd to everyone on this webinar, you now have active call control. That means that after the call is placed, you're able to control that call, and this is what the app looks like. There's a hold button, there's a transfer button, there's an end call button. And so you'll be able to transfer the call to any of your contacts or to any external PSTN number by dialing in that PSTN number. So it's really quite a big difference. And of course, it's hard to offer a service to clients if you tell them that some of the basic features that they depend on every day are not part of the service. So we believe that we've built a product that meets the needs of your customers, and we're really excited to have you try it and hopefully get success out there in the market. Okay, so with that ends my portion of the presentation. Eric Tiffany is now going to describe the steps necessary to configure this in the service portal if you have a teammate account. And so I think what we're doing is I'll just page through the slides, Eric, and you tell me when you're ready for me to go.
So Eric,
Yeah.
if I can interrupt real quick,
Sure.
let me just, there was a number of questions about how to enable it, and this might be a good segue for our Netsapiens customers so they understand exactly what's involved, and then it'll make sense when Eric transitions over. So if you are currently have a subscription to the Teammate application as a Netsapiens customer, the only thing that we need to do is add the ability to add the Valet app onto your existing. We offer 2 plans for the Teammate subscription. The entry level plan is really $30 a month and includes 10 seats. And then we have a larger plan which is $2.50 per seat and scales downwards. So you have to be an existing Netsapiens Teammate customer to get the Valet app. We will go in and simply enable it on your account. So there's no other actions required other than to ask us to do that. Once it's enabled, what you see Eric doing will be there for you to do that. So the introduction of this service is very, very easy. There's nothing other than to ask us to enable it. One of the questions that did come up, however, which is important, is the question came up. It says, how does this affect customers who've already purchased the $8 system license so that they can use the Valet app? And so, Eric, if you would, I think I know the answer to that, but I want to make sure that it's correct. So if we did this yesterday, but can you answer that? If a customer currently is using the phone system license app and wants to convert to the Valet app, what's involved?
Yeah. So one of the nice things about the way we've deployed this is that you can actually mix and match. You can have some customers, and it's common out there that end users in an enterprise will have different licenses, right? You can have one customer with an E5 license and another user in the same organization with an E3 license or a Teams Basic license. And so for those customers to have E5, you can use the standard PBX connector. For the ones that don't, you can use the calling app. And if you want to switch, which was the question, it's just a matter of re-provisioning that user inside the Teammate service portal, unassigning and Eric will get into this more when he talks about the provisioning, but you're basically unassign the non-Valet resource and reassign a Valet resource.
Okay. And then the question came up.
While we're here, I also see a question about the mobile, whether it works on mobile. And the answer is absolutely yes, it works great on mobile. I mean, really, one of the best parts about Teams is how well it works on mobile, and that extends to Teammate as well with the calling app. You can pin that Valet icon, and again, it's brandable. It doesn't have to say Valet. It can say whatever you want it to say. You can pin that to the bottom menu in the mobile app, and in place of the regular calling app, and you just click that when you want to make calls, and it works the same way.
Yep, perfect. Okay. So Brandon wants to know if there will be given NFR licenses for testing. The answer, I don't think there are any plans to do that at this point, Eric. I mean, if we've made the Teammate licensing cost so inexpensive that most every one of our customers is just subscribed to the 10-user Teammate license bundle, which is unique to the Crexendo model, by the way, and they've used that for testing, and that's that.
I will say though that we, so during the period since we launched this at the end of February, we haven't been charging anything, and in fact, the billing hasn't even been turned on. So you could, between now and our GA date, which is in June, turn it on, and I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, we're not billing for it, and I don't believe Crexendo is billing for that either if it's just turned on, other than the standard PBX connector fee.
Yes, true statement. Because we're still in the beta trial. So once you go to GA, at that point we view that as being a production environment, and at that point we would be for if it is the middle of June, um, it would be invoiced in July for a user in June. But until then, again, early on, we've had this with all of our other applications and our other vendors is we want your feedback. We want to collaborate with you. We're not really interested in the $2. We're not going to extract our $2 from you if you're willing to do a test for it. So, okay. So, next question from Mike was, what exactly is a seat, a single user, a single customer? The answer, Mike, is it's a single user. So a given enterprise is the terminology used for a customer, and the users, are there any number of users within that enterprise would be using the license. Okay. All right.
Almost, just on that note, and this may be obvious, but I'll say it. When you're using Teams, you could be running Teams on your mobile phone, on a number of mobile devices, your tablet, your laptop. That's all. That's all one Teams user, even though Microsoft will deliver the calls to all of them, and so that is just one user as far as we're concerned as well.
Okay, and one clarification from Robert Riley in his chat. If you have the 10-seat user license, those teammate users are not all necessarily valet users. What Eric was saying is, if they have an E5 G5 license, there is no phone system license. It's part of the Microsoft package. If they don't have that license, then you would incur that $8 phone system license. Now you have an option instead of that $8 system license to use the $2 Valet app in its place. So the 10 teammate users are 10 teammate users if they're incremental and on an elective basis for anyone who needs the Valet app on top of the teammate license. So I hope that's good. All right. Let's Eric, with that as a baseline, I think it'll make a lot more sense now when you show people how this actually gets set up. And again, keep the questions coming. We'll answer them at the next break.
Sure. So I just wanted to give a brief overview of what the sort of overall flow of setting this thing up is. If you're familiar with the initial setup of an enterprise, it's kind of similar. So when you come into our platform, there's a few things you have to do to begin with to get things set up, and then after that, it's kind of a repetitive set of tasks to create additional users. So the initial steps for this are a bit different than what you may have seen in the past with our other products. So there are steps that can be taken in parallel. One thing you need to do is to make sure the enterprise has gotten themselves a free Teams Phone license resource account license. The phone resource account is something people typically have anyway because they may have built, I don't know, auto attendance or something else inside Teams, but they're free and they sort of come with by 2 Microsoft licenses. You probably will get 25 free resource accounts licenses if you want them. Anyway, they need to get those and they need to make those available. So that's sort of an initial step before any of this other stuff will work. In parallel, the reseller, needs to be able to set up at the reseller level, set up their application, the Valet app. If you're familiar with the PBX app, it's similar in terms of the way you brand it and configure it, and then it'll need to be deployed to the enterprise as well, where it can be further branded for that particular enterprise if you so desire. The Valet service needs to be added to the enterprise, and if you're a master reseller, needs to be added to your resellers. So there's a couple steps in enabling the service to begin with, and again, you sort of can brand that app template for the particular enterprise if you want to, or they can just take whatever your sort of higher level branding is going to be. So once you've got those steps in place, then the enterprise admin needs to log in and do a few things. Create the Valet service instance, configure, which is basically taking advantage of that resource account that they obtained earlier. and then configure that that valet service user to have a sort of one of your free available seats on your Netsapiens platform. Basically, you need to give it a number, or a user rather, in Netsapiens, and then deploy the app, which is the thing that Eric was just showing you with the dial pad and the history and the transfer and all those other buttons, and then build users. And so the last step is the one that is you just repeat that over and over again. The first, all the stuff above, happens once per customer, per enterprise, but building users, the customer can go ahead and build those users, and you build them just exactly like you do with the regular PBX users that you may have been dealing with already. And just one point, we also released recently the ability for our service providers to actually manage a lot of this stuff on behalf of the enterprise. So if your customer has granted that consent, you can actually build those users for them instead of having the enterprise admin having to log in and do syncing. So the user building, can happen both at the reseller level and also at the enterprise level. So that's kind of a nice bonus. Anyway, that's the overview, and now we're going to sort of whip through some pictures of what this stuff kind of looks like. So as I mentioned, the tenant, well, the enterprise, but really the tenant in Microsoft needs to go and get themselves at least one resource account. And just as an FYI, it's a challenge to navigate their purchasing pages. So one way to do that is to go into the purchase services in your tenant and click on the search button, search for resource account, and then you'll probably get those two options down at the bottom. They both say free. I'm not sure that there's any difference between them. And then when you click on details, it'll say buy. The other challenge is that you need to have a purchase, the ability to make that purchase. So even if you, anyway, you've probably done this before if you've messed around with Microsoft at all, but you do need to actually buy them. They don't just give them away for free. You have to buy them for $0.
You buy the free license. That's so Microsoft.
Yeah, it is. Anyway, yeah, you have to go find them and then you have to buy them. So once you've got that in place, then the reseller can come in and add the valet service. Now this is the similar interface for if you're a master reseller, you would go to your reseller and do basically the same thing. You go to the right-hand side under the action, click on the three dots, slide down to click on Edit Enterprise, or in the case of a reseller, Edit Reseller. And then on that subsequent page, there'll be a section where the services are listed, and you'll see, we have a bunch of services, and the PBX is there, and the new thing is the Valet app. So you just sort of pick Valet app off of the list, and it pops into that list, and you save. And now the Valet service is available for that reseller and or the enterprise. So that's pretty easy. Another thing you need to do is to sort of brand your Valet app. So once you've got the service available, now when you go to the app template or the app management pages, you'll see that there's another tab. Previously you probably saw a PBX app where you would do your branding, give it its your name, your logos, whatever. There's now another tab called Valet app, and in there you can do the same kind of branding. In fact, it's almost exactly the same interface. You give it a name, you fill out all the other bits and pieces, give it the logo, and save it. So here, we're looking at is the enterprise level app management. Previously to that, you'll have to set up the template at the reseller level, which will then get inherited by the enterprises. And then when you set it up at the enterprise level, you can do additional branding if you wish, for their particular use. And just FYI, you have to make sure that you're actually looking at the Valet tab, not the PBX tab. Otherwise, you won't actually be building the Valet app. So then, now that you've got that built and set up for the enterprise, then the enterprise guy can come in and has to click on a few things. So the first thing that they should see is on their dashboard is there's a button called Setup, and they should click it. And when they click it, a bunch of stuff happens in the background to set up that Valet service account, to provision the right, settings and everything into Teams. And this is what depends on having that free resource account available. So if you don't have that available, then it's going to break. So that's why it's sort of a nice prerequisite for people to make sure that that's in place. So once you do that, and this may take a little while because it's Microsoft, 5-10 minutes is not unreasonable. There'll be a lot of stuff going on in the background, and then finally it'll say it finished. And at that point, then there will be a different button that pops up saying configure the Valet service account. So now the service account is created, but now you've got to configure it and set it up with a number from your PBX. So this is just exactly like setting up a regular PBX user that you may have done before via our platform. You click that configure button, and then up pops this kind of special configure Valet service account, and you pick your PBX location, which is you probably have just one of those. You pick your voice route, which you may have one or more, doesn't really matter. And then you pick your Teams user, and the Teams user, you'll have exactly one choice, and it'll be called Valet Service. And so you pick that, then you assign a phone number, and rather a Netsapiens user, and then set up the I don't know why I put this picture in. I didn't put in the one where it was allowing you to pick the user. But in any case, you set up the user just like you would normally. And you can use either a DID or just an extension. Okay, so once that user is created, then there's another button that pops up. And so this is kind of this long sequence of doing things in order to get things configured properly. So at this point, then the enterprise admin needs to grant consent to do a few things. It needs to set up these permissions. The permissions will pop up, and they'll accept that, and then they'll have the opportunity to sync the Valet app, which is what pushes the Valet app out into their tenant. So this is another sequence of things that may take a little while to complete, but with any luck, it will just go through slick, and then you'll be in the point where you can actually set up real users. And this is this part that will be something that you as a reseller or the enterprise will do on an ongoing basis. So this is just exactly like setting up a regular PBX user, except that now it's a Valet user. So you click on the Configure Valet App User button instead of the Add User button. You can configure Valet App User, and you'll get to a page which looks very, very much like the regular PBX user page. Here in this case, we've actually set it up using our Netsapiens integration, so that when you pick the PBX, it will populate the SIP user list with the available SIP users. The Teams users list will contain only those users who do not have a phone system license. So just the opposite of the way the PBX, our PBX product works. That product requires that you have a phone system license. The Valet app requires that you do not have a phone system license. And so only those non-phone licensed users will appear in that Teams users list. And that is kind of the end of it. I mean, then, and again, as I mentioned before, if the reseller has configured, or the enterprise has configured that consent grant, then the reseller can come in and create those users completely soup to nuts. There are those steps that I listed, though, that do need to be performed by the enterprise admin, because there are certain grants and privileges that are only available when that enterprise admin is logged in and is pushing those buttons. So So that's kind of key. So clearly, we advise you to explore how this works and become familiar with it, because as you can see, it is a little bit involved, but you know, the complex part only has to happen once.
Okay, thank you, Eric.
There's a couple of
And
questions
I'll
in the chat.
just to reiterate, Eric mentioned it, but that it was a feature that was included in our last release. We call it grant consent. It's really a big deal because, you know, in the past you used to have to be able, every time you made a change to a user, the enterprise admin would have to go in and sync that change because Microsoft wanted the enterprise admin's permission. Since then, Microsoft has allowed that permission to be delegated, and if the enterprise global administrator allows you to perform those actions on his behalf by clicking the grant consent button, then once the app is set up, which you cannot grant consent to set up the app, then all of the user management can be done without the enterprise global administrator's interaction.
Yeah, I think that's a huge advantage, Eric, the grant consent capability.
That was
so there's a couple of questions.
The number one complaint we received about this process.
Yeah. I thought the number one complaint was the host of this session, but that may be a different complaint.
Or maybe the $8 license.
That would be the second one. That would be the second complaint. A couple of good questions though came up. SMS available using the Valet app. I was about to type yes, but I didn't want to because I wasn't sure. I was 100% sure of the answer.
Yes, in that June release, 2.8, the existing SMS functionality will be a tab in the Valet interface.
Right, and for everybody on this call, so you know that there will be an incremental charge of 50 cents for the use of the SMS app. It's not significant, but I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. So there you go. There's the answer to that. The answer is yes. Can Valet apps be contact center users or contact center agents? I don't know the answer to that. So
yes. So this is the answer today is no, and the reason is because what happens is if you're on Teams and let's say you're having a Teams meeting that has nothing to do with the PBX, you know, it's just a Teams. There's no way for us to inform the PBX that you're busy, and so what would happen is that, you know, calls would come in even if you're already on a call. We're currently working with the Netsapiens engineering team to implement shared presence so that your presence on Teams can be shared with the PBX, and when that's available, then it will work with the contact center.
Okay. I mean, the way I always pictured this is you've got the E5, A5, G5 customers with the phone system license. Those are your phone users today. What this does, what the Valet app does, is it opens it up to a huge swath of Teams users who are not licensed with a phone system license, and that's where the opportunity is with Valet. And one of the questions that came in is, can I mix and match in an enterprise? And the answer is yes, of course. But that's where the huge incremental opportunity comes is for all those users below that do not have the phone system license. They have a much more lower cost option than they did prior to that. So that was, I think, the biggest complaint that people had is not buying the $8 phone system license, but having a need for those customers. So, okay, so written instructions on the setup in the enterprise admin. As it is today, the knowledge base goes through every step, so you can go to that knowledge base and follow that through. All right, so that was obviously answered by Eric, so thank you. You got ahead of me a little bit. Documentation on setup and pricing. I referenced the pricing. I'll reference it again. If you're currently a Teams customer on the Netsapiens, there is no addition. Open a ticket and allow us to, and we'll add the Valet app as a master reseller for you, and then you'll have to go through and configure it the way Eric described it. But there is no additional cost. There is no additional agreement. It's just there for the usage. And Caleb, I agree with you. Shared presence, we got it. We hear you loud and clear. Um, and Andy, my buddy Andy, has asked a question. Um, none of us on this call are concerned, but but have you ever been able to predict what Microsoft's choosing to do,
Well,
in the future?
Well, I will say it's not so much of a loophole. We're using the Azure Communication Service, which is Microsoft's CPaaS offering, and they've made this type of activity a part of that ACS capability, and we're paying for it. So that extra cost is really that's not profit. That goes to pay Microsoft with charges actually per minute for the use of Teams in this way. Now, will they continue to do that? Who knows? But it's not it's not like we're taking advantage of something that was not an approved Microsoft use of the service.
Yeah,
right,
and
well,
Microsoft ain't
point.
Google, so.
Okay, so JR's question on the text here, though, I do think, Eric, is worth reiterating the original explanation about the Valet app residing in the Teams app, connected to the PBX, or connected through the MS Voice infrastructure. The back end architecture here.
What's happening here is the registrations are coming from we call it the teammate connector. It's actually a back-to-back user agent that knows about all of the Teams users and creates registrations for each Teams user. So our back-to-back user agent is up in the cloud. It lives in Microsoft Azure, and that's what's registering to Netsapiens. I'm reading the question. There's no WebRTC involved except to the extent that Microsoft might use WebRTC in the internals of Teams. But it's purely through Microsoft's media engine from the client all the way to our back-to-back user agent, and then of course from there to your Netsapiens server.
All right, perfect. Okay, and to Ray's question again, since everybody is clear, the Teammate user app is the Teammate user app that you currently are under using the existing sales order. What the Valet app does is an optional add-on charge for any of the Teammate user apps that want to enable the Valet, the functionality. So again, it depends upon whether you need it or not. It's an option onto the existing app to use the ACS connection methodology instead of the phone system PBX license methodology, if that's a better way of stating it.
I see a question from my buddy Mike McIntosh. Can the transferring be done internally in Teams as well as externally? The answer is yes. So when you go to transfer a call, you'll be able to select from a drop-down. Well, it's a smart search, so you just start typing in a name or a number. It will show all of your contacts, whether those are internal or external. Or, of course, you can type in just a PSTN number.
All right. All right, so there are a couple of quick questions here. I don't know the answer to the current SMS providers allowed through Teammates. Do you know the answer to that, Eric or Eric?
Yes. So today it's Twilio, IntelliQuint, and Bandwidth. We're currently working on a new carrier called Tycron, and we're also we have in the roadmap plans to connect directly to the Netsapiens core messaging as a carrier, so that messages sent through the Netsapiens platform can also end up inside Teams.
Okay, cool. All right. And conference available soon? That was a question.
Not sure what that means. If just trying to interpret that question. Okay. Microsoft does not currently give us a way to join a conference. That's kind of like a different infrastructure. That is something that they say is going to be possible through ACS, so that you can, for example, provide external phone numbers that ring into a conference, a Microsoft meeting, if that's what you mean by conference. And so, we're hopeful that we can use those capabilities from Microsoft in the future, but today you cannot access Teams meetings externally outside of Microsoft. If you meant something else by conference, just let me know.
Okay.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Adding okay, that's a good question. So a three-way call is what that question is about?
Correct.
No, we don't have the capability today to make a three-way call from the Teams client.
Not to external users, but if you wanted to add an internal Teams user to so when you connect a valet call, you're then effectively in kind of a Teams meeting. You can then add other Teams users to that call. So from that standpoint, I've tested that. That works okay.
Right.
But
right.
what is not available is sort of calling out to another external number.
Right. Where it used to be trunk-to-trunk conference calling in the old term.
Of course, on the other hand, if you were to add a user from the Netsapiens end user portal, that would work, of course.
You could do that. Yep, you could do that as well. Okay. All right, so we're kind of winding down on time, and we're kind of winding down on the questions. So we'll give a 15-second warning for any final questions that anybody has. And if not, I just would like to personally thank both Eric and Eric for going through this. I think it's a huge opportunity pursuing the Teams marketplace. I think the work and effort that they've done and then introducing the valet functionality broadens a huge segment of the Teams marketplace that might not be normally attractive to this solution. So I think it's a great incremental opportunity if you know how to take advantage of that opportunity. So Daniel, last question, any option for parking calls?
So you can. So one of the capabilities that's currently in the PBX app is the ability to program programmable buttons, feature codes. So
right.
basically, what you're doing when you're parking a call is you're just transferring to a
right.
call park orbit on the Netsapiens platform. So yes, you can park a call in that
right.
way.
I would have thought the answer would be yes. I just didn't know for sure, so I didn't want to stick my neck out. Okay.
Always playing it safe, Jason. Not.
Don't live on the edge. Live close, but not too close. All right. So thank you guys very much. Appreciate it. If anybody has any questions, you know how to reach me. You know how to reach Eric. We're always available to try to help you. As I said, we're going to be working through in the late stages of this pre-production release period. And once it's commercially or generally available is when I fully expect that you'll hit the ground running. So yes, last question, Caleb. Open it. There, some of our customers already opened tickets to enable the valet feature. Just enter it in the ticket. Terry and I are monitoring it. We'll go in and go through all the tickets. We're waiting until we had this session today, and we'll start enabling the valet on your app as requested basis. So with that, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it, and thank you for being part of the Netsapiens community. And thank you, Eric and Eric.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Thanks everyone for attending. Have a great day.
Take care, everyone.